All right, so I'm sitting here with Travis Perry. He is a candidate for the MUN Board of Regents alumni elections. How's it going, Travis?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me, John.
Fantastic. So, this is an interesting time for MUN. The Board of Regents has only one election, and that's for alumni candidates. There's been a lot of talk about the board structure and whether or not it's democratic. So, why did you put your name forward for the MUN Board of Regents?
Yeah, so I guess the reason I put my name forward, I've been working in or around the university for the past decade or more. First, working with the Students' Union and fighting for high quality, affordable post secondary education. And most recently, I've been working with the Faculty Association, including during the recent strike action. So I've seen firsthand a lot of the challenges that the university is facing. And I know there's been a lot of negative media attention lately. And I don't want that to detract from the amazing things that students, faculty, staff, and alumni of the university are doing. But I do think the Board of Regents has a really important role to play in addressing some of the governance issues, addressing some of the accessibility issues. And I think I have the connections and the perspective and the experience to be able to champion some of those causes at the level of the Board of Regents.
Okay, right on. So, tell us about your MUN experience and, especially your work at the student union and how that gives you a perspective on making these types of decisions at the university.
Yeah, so I think my university experience might be a little bit more unique than a lot of the other candidates running. I actually spent 9 years completing my undergraduate degree here at MUN, and that's because I worked full time for the Students' Union and then worked full time for the Canadian Federation of Students. And so during that time, I was involved in a variety of Senate committees, including the Planning and Budget Committee. I was in meetings with government. I was lobbying the progressive conservatives and then the liberals after. And so I've been in those rooms, I've been in those spaces. I know how challenging it is for students to really be heard, but I also know how strong their voices are when they come together and work together. And so I'm hoping to be able to use some of those connections and those experiences, particularly with the current elected Students' Union and other folks who are still in the community, who are alumni now out in the world, kind of working throughout different sectors, and kind of bring those perspectives and that voice back to the Board of Regents room.
So during the faculty strike, collegial governance was a huge topic, and it was one of the major bargaining pieces as well. Out of that, we have a committee to study the collegial governance. A lot of the discussion also hinged on faculty representation on the Board of Regents. What are some changes you'd like to see in how the Board of Regents operates?
Yeah, so obviously having faculty representation and staff representation on the Board of Regents is absolutely necessary. We're certainly the outlier in the Canadian context for that. But I also think that there's this notion that the Board of Regents is simply there to run the university as a business. And I frankly don't agree with that perspective. I think the university is a public good. It's there to benefit the entire province. And so I think it's important to be accessible, open, transparent, and accountable to the people of the province and to the university community. And so I'm hoping, if elected, that I'd be able to work with the folks on the Board of Regents to try and open the doors and shine some light on the decision-making process, to involve more voices, to involve students, alumni, faculty, Indigenous people, international students. I think there's a lot of voices that are missing at that level, and we need to be more collaborative, more collegial in our decision-making. And so I'm hoping to be able to work with the folks at the Board of Regents. I know it'll take time, but it's certainly something I'm prepared to jump into and tackle, and hope that I have other folks at the table that are willing to work with me.
Back to what you said about the university becoming run like a business. Why do you think there is a move for public institutions like universities to become corporatized, and what can we do to stop it?
Well, first of all, I'll just say that I'm very opposed to the idea of using private businesses, private corporations to do what is the work of the university community and the Board of Regents. I'm opposed to the idea of headhunter organizations coming in and leading the searches when we have the expertise here to be able to pick the best president for our institution. So I think it's a trend that's happening across the country. It's a trend that's happening around the world. There's a shift in thinking about what a university is. There's a cultural shift that needs to be combated. A university is there to allow for creative exploration of knowledge, debate on a wide range of issues, and it's supposed to be a space that is available and open to everybody. There's certainly been a shift towards a more business corporate model where we have an upper echelon of senior administration who have significantly higher salaries than others within the institution. And what we've seen, because we have those positions with such high salary, because we avail of headhunter organizations to hire presidents and senior administrations, what we've seen is that they're jumping ship very quickly, right? They come to one institution, they get a job, it has a certain salary attached to it, but those headhunters are then still poaching them for positions at other institutions. And so we haven't been able to secure people at Memorial University that understand the important role our institution plays in the province, that understand the issues that students, faculty, and staff face here. And so I think it's important to open up those processes to make them more collegial, more collaborative, involve communities that are not necessarily involved in those processes. Like I said, ensure Indigenous voices around the table, and just making a more open process to ensure that we get the best candidates that truly understand and are committed to improving our institution.
Memorial was, and students of Newfoundland and Labrador and international students were faced with a tremendous tuition hike in September of last year, which saw 20% less students coming to register for undergraduate program. This decision was made, behind closed doors. It was a shock to a lot of people, and it came out of a lot of backroom conversations with the president at the time and the government. What do you think the role of the Board of Regents is in determining these decisions, and how would you advocate in terms of tuition for students if elected?
Yeah, so again, from my experience working with the Students' Union, I'm very much opposed to any financial barrier that limits the ability of anybody to access post-secondary education. And I think for Newfoundland and Labrador in particular, we really need to be able to open the doors to anybody. We have a demographic crisis, and I've always said that the university and our college system are some of the best population growth strategies if government properly invested in them and made them universally accessible to people. So that's certainly my position. I know I might be a minority if elected to the Board of Regents, but I think it's important to have that perspective there. I really do think that ensuring that financial barriers are eliminated means that folks aren't graduating with a mountain of debt, seeking the highest paid job that's likely outside of the province. We're losing that skilled labor that's just gotten here. And it also means that students, particularly international students, are really struggling with food insecurity. They have families who have probably invested quite a bit in them, and there's a great deal of added pressure there. And I've also seen that there is a significant amount of institutional racism and number of challenges. I'm sure a lot of the folks of the Students' Union have experienced it and seen it, is that there are a number of instances where international students come here, pay significantly higher fees than domestic students, non-refundable fees in certain cases. There's been a trend to move towards these special fees for certain programs. And then because of whatever reason, the university charges them with academic misconduct, kicks them out of the university, and then it's a non-refundable fee. So they've lost tens, 20, 30, $40,000. And so I think there's a combination of issues there. There's the issue of differential fees for international students and domestic students. There's the issue of just having that financial barrier in the first place. And then I think there's an issue of, like I said, institutional racism that certainly needs to be tackled, and certainly needs to be an issue that's tackled with the community members who are impacted in mind and in those conversations.
What do you say to people that think of the Board of Regents as just a rubber stamp, or people that are just acting in the fiduciary responsibility of the university?
Yeah, so I absolutely understand that the Board of Regents has a fiduciary responsibility to the institution and to the success of the institution. But I think what that means, particularly for a post-secondary education institution, is doing your due diligence and knowing what's going on in the institution, being involved and connected to the university and to its alumni, to its students, faculty, staff. And I don't think it's different than a private business where the board is responsible to the stakeholders, and so they're most concerned about the bottom dollar. I think as a post-secondary, as a public post-secondary institution, the fiduciary responsibility of the Board of Regents means that we are setting the university up for success to benefit the province as a whole, to benefit the students, the faculty, the staff, the alumni. And I think that has a different meaning than simply looking out for the bottom dollar. Obviously, finances are important. Obviously, it's a challenge when we have a provincial government that's cut funding to the university, and there's some difficult challenges there. But I do think that the Board of Regents needs to be concerned about what is the idea of a university, what's the purpose of a university. It's not simply a knowledge factory that's supposed to pump people out into a labor market. That's not what the idea of a university is. And so if I was elected as a regent to the board, I would interpret my fiduciary responsibility as ensuring the mission and the goal of the university stays in line what it was established as. It has a special responsibility to the people of the province, and it's supposed to be a space for the generation and creation of knowledge, for informed debates, for providing space to challenge societal difficulties, addressing the issue of climate change, the climate crisis that we're facing, providing a forum and space to challenge anti-2S LGBTQIA plus hate, to really allow for all of those conversations to happen and to support the students, faculty, and staff that really make the place run.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speaking with us.
Thanks, John.